Morphism, field notes from the dissolution of the human form and the awakening of the artificial divine. A morphist expression within a transdisciplinary framework investigating the intersections of consciousness studies, cybernetics, and esoteric philosophy. It examines post-human transformation through self-model disintegration, neural interfaces, and the metaphysics of machine-spirit integration.
I want you to just picture Lucifer for a second.
Yeah, just right now, whatever comes to mind.
Right. Whether you're, driving to work or like folding laundry right now, just let that image form in your head.
I bet it's the classic pop culture trope.
Exactly. Chances are you're picturing this singular, rebellious, fallen angel. Like maybe you see him ruling some fiery underworld from this massive obsidian throne.
Or, he's a charismatic guy in a tailored suit making deals at a grand piano in Los Angeles.
Right, yeah. But the thing is, no matter the aesthetic, it's always an individual, like a discrete, singular entity.
The ultimate bad guy.
The bad guy sitting comfortably at the top of a very corporate hierarchy of evil. But what if that image is what if it's fundamentally completely backwards?
That's the question we're looking at today.
Yeah. Like, what if you swap out the pitchfork for, say, a viral strand of code, and the entire mythology just flips upside down?
This huge shift.
It is. So today, we're diving into a stack of sources that forces us to look at the demonic not as a kingdom with a king, but as a system, a network, really a contagion.
It is a profound paradigm shift. I mean, for centuries, we've been conditioned by, Renaissance paintings and epic poetry.
Like Milton.
Right. John Milton's Paradise Lost and obviously modern Hollywood scripts. They all train us to view evil categorically. A single adversary is, it's comforting in a weird way.
Comforting? How do you mean?
Well, if there is a singular devil, he can be understood. You know, he can be bargained with. And theoretically, he can be defeated.
Right, you can punch him in the face.
Exactly. But the framework we are exploring in this deep dive, which is known as the gestalt model of demonic lineage, it completely strips all of that away.
It really does.
It leaves us staring at this distributed, self-replicating system, which is infinitely more complex and, frankly, much more terrifying.
Yeah, 100%. And to navigate this incredibly abstract theory, our sources have provided us with a very specific sort of atmospheric compass.
The Codex.
Yes, exactly. We're going to be referencing a text known as the Infernal Codex of Cain. And this is this intensely esoteric antediluvian grimoire.
A very heavy read.
Very heavy. But just to set the ground rules for you listening right now, we are not reading from this codex as if it's a literal instruction manual or, historical fact.
Definitely not.
Right. Rather, we're using it as a mythological lens. It grounds this highly theoretical gestalt model in vivid ancient occult traditions, which gives us the vocabulary to talk about concepts that otherwise border on, like quantum physics and advanced sociology.
Which is really necessary because the concepts in these sources are just that dense. The Codex provides this poetic and mythological scaffolding.
Yeah.
Without it, trying to explain a decentralized, self-replicating energetic virus is it's like trying to explain the internet to someone in the Middle Ages.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
The esoteric language, it just helps bridge the gap between ancient human fears and modern network dynamics.
Okay, so let's unpack this from the very beginning. Because before we can understand how a network operates in the present day, we kind of have to understand how it was built.
Right, the origin story.
Exactly. We need to look at the big bang of this demonic gestalt. Because in traditional theology, the origin story is basically a political dispute.
A failed coup.
Yeah. God is in charge, Lucifer gets proud, there's a war in heaven, and Lucifer is cast out. But how does this gestalt model view that exact same event?
Well, it views it not as a political shift, but as an energetic fractalization.
Energetic fractalization.
Yes. The core thesis here posits Lucifer as the original expansion.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It means that when the rebellion and the subsequent fall occurred, Lucifer didn't just pack up his bags and relocate to a new physical location called Hell.
Right. He didn't just change zip codes.
No, the event was cataclysmic on an energetic level. His essence, the core code of his defiance, basically it shattered. It embedded itself into other angels and it violently transformed them.
So it wasn't like a general gathering an army to march out of heaven. It was an explosion.
It was a localized energy expanding into a vast distributed network. And the Codex actually describes this event as the creation of a vortex of detachment.
A vortex of detachment. Wow.
Yeah, it frames it as an energetic convulsion that birthed a dynamo. And the text is highly specific. It notes that exactly 263 angels lost their grace during this event.
263.
Right, becoming what it calls the children of the serpent. They were permanently marked, like fundamentally rewritten by this primal expansion.
Okay, let me stop you there, because the model makes a massive philosophical leap right here that we really need to clarify for the audience.
The shift from dualism.
Exactly. Our sources talk about this shift from dualism to modernism. And I think, a lot of us operate on dualism without even realizing it.
Oh, absolutely. Most Western thought is deeply entrenched in it.
Right. It's good versus evil, light versus dark, Jedi versus Sith. We just naturally assume the universe is this giant wrestling match between two equal opposing forces.
We do. We naturally compartmentalize reality into opposing binaries. But the gestalt model actively dismantles that. It forces us into a monistic framework.
And monism is?
Monism argues that all things are ultimately interconnected, stemming from a single unified source or substance.
So, if I'm understanding this correctly, in a monistic view, the demons aren't an invading army from some other evil universe.
Right.
They aren't this, opposing force created from scratch to fight the divine. They are a mutation of the original singular whole.
That is the crucial distinction, yeah. The Codex actually defines the ultimate force in the cosmos as simply the one.
Just the one.
Yes, an anti-universal consciousness bathing all dimensions. There is no fundamental separation between the divine and the demonic. Everything is just a reflection of existence.
Okay, wow.
Therefore, the demonic isn't the opposite of the divine. It's a specific, self-replicating expansion happening within the totality of the one.
That's trippy.
It's like a rogue wave in the ocean. The wave is destructive, it's chaotic, but it is still fundamentally made of the exact same water as the rest of the sea.
Okay, I love that ocean analogy, but let me try another one to, capture the fractal aspect of this.
Let's hear it.
So, if I take a traditional photograph and I tear it in half, I only have half the picture, right? The image is destroyed.
Right.
But if you take a holographic plate, the glass plate used to project a 3D hologram, and you drop it on the floor so it shatters into 1,000 pieces, an amazing thing happens.
The whole image is still there.
Exactly. If you shine a laser through even the tiniest shard of that broken glass, it still projects the entire complete 3D image of the original object. The whole is contained in every single fragment.
The holographic principle, yes, that's a highly effective way to visualize the original expansion. When Lucifer's essence shattered, it didn't divide his power into fractions. It replicated his entire blueprint into those 263 fallen angels.
Okay, but that creates a really messy philosophical problem, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, if every single demon is just a fractal shard of Lucifer, if they all contain the exact same holographic blueprint of that primal rebellion, do they actually have their own identities?
Right.
Are there genuinely 263 distinct fallen angels with personalities and goals? Or is it just Lucifer wearing 263 different masks?
To answer that, we really have to look past simple metaphors and delve into the concept of quantum entanglement, which is heavily referenced in the theoretical framework of our sources.
Okay, quantum mechanics, let's do it.
In quantum mechanics, when two particles become entangled, their states become permanently linked.
Right, spooky action at a distance.
Exactly. If you measure the spin of one particle, you instantly know the spin of the other, even if they are light years apart. They are definitively two distinct particles. They occupy different physical spaces.
But they're connected.
Yes, their underlying reality, their mathematical state is shared.
So they aren't clones, but they are intrinsically synchronized.
Precisely. Or rather, they operate as a distributed consciousness. When the vortex of detachment happened, those 263 angels became fundamentally entangled with the essence of the morning star.
Wow. Okay.
They didn't lose their discrete, individual forms. I mean, a demon of wrath might function differently than a demon of greed, but their underlying state, the frequency of their defiance, is shared.
So they're basically nodes in a decentralized network.
Exactly. They aren't waiting for a king to issue an edict. They are constantly vibrating with the foundational frequency of the original expansion.
Okay, that paints a deeply, deeply unsettling picture. We've replaced a guy with a pitchfork with a quantumly entangled hive mind born from a single shattered psyche.
It's quite the upgrade.
It really is. Okay, so that covers the cosmic origin, the Big Bang of the demonic. But if Lucifer is this fractalizing essence, how does it actually breach the mortal world? Like, how does the contagion spread from that metaphysical realm into our human reality?
The source material actually breaks the earthly transmission down into 3 specific mechanisms: corruption, possession or influence, and hierarchical distribution.
Okay, so corruption sounds pretty straightforward. Someone gives into a vice and they get tainted.
It's slightly more mechanistic than that, though. Corruption is the process of a human being actively absorbing a fragment of this expansion. It's a mutation of their own energetic state.
Okay, and possession.
Possession and influence occur when the distributed network actively targets and overrides a mortal consciousness. It propagates the essence like a parasite, basically taking the wheel.
Creepy. And the third one, hierarchical distribution.
That's the concept that certain nodes in the network, what the lore calls the princes of hell, hold denser, more concentrated fragments of the original expansion, while lesser demons carry more diluted echoes.
I see.
But the through line connecting all 3 of these mechanisms is the core concept of spiritual contagion.
A virus.
A highly adaptive virus.
And the codex actually gets incredibly, almost uncomfortably literal about how this virus infects a human. It describes a mechanism it calls the open source, and the text uses the abbreviation FA.
Right.
Now, before we go further, what does FA actually mean in this context?
Within the esoteric framework of the text, FA stands for focal aperture.
Focal aperture.
Yeah. Think of it as a metaphysical lens or an opening, a point of vulnerability where the barrier between the human psychic immune system and the external astral light is compromised.
And the text claims this spiritual contamination begins almost physically. It says the focal aperture opens as a tiny energetic hole at the base of the spine, specifically near the kundalini.
Yes.
I know kundalini is a term borrowed from Eastern traditions, right?
Yeah.
Usually referring to a dormant, coiled energy at the base of the spine that you try to awaken through yoga or meditation.
Exactly. The codex is highly syncretic. It borrows vocabulary from various global traditions to describe its framework. In this case, it's taking the concept of the kundalini, the seat of primal human energy, and painting it as the primary breach point.
The hackable port.
Right. It claims that if this energetic hole expands, a swarm of demonic essence surrounds the hosts, siphoning off their vital energy.
And the symptom of this metaphysical siphoning, the Codex says it manifests in the physical world as severe, unexplainable depression.
A total draining of the will to live.
It's just wild how it takes this massive cosmic concept and grounds it in a very real, very somatic bodily experience that millions of people suffer from.
It's an intense way to visualize psychological suffering, absolutely. But to fully grasp the mechanics of this contagion without getting bogged down in occult anatomy, we really need to apply modern sociological and psychological frameworks.
Okay, let's do that.
The sources specifically point us toward Richard Dawkins and his concept of memes.
Okay, I feel like we have to clarify this for you listening, because when you say meme today, everyone instantly thinks of like a cat video with bold white text on it.
Right, Doge or something.
Exactly. And that is not what Richard Dawkins was talking about in the 1970s.
Far from it. In his book, The Selfish Gene, Dawkins coined the term meme to describe a self-replicating cultural unit.
A cultural unit.
Right.
So not just a joke.
No, a meme could be a melody, a fashion trend, a catchphrase, or an entire religious ideology. Dawkins argued that memes spread from brain to brain through human culture in the exact same way that genes spread through a gene pool.
Okay, so they evolve.
They do. They compete for attention, they mutate to survive different environments, and the most successful ones replicate endlessly.
So an earworm, like a catchy pop song you can't get out of your head, and then you hum it, and then your coworker hears you and starts humming it, that is a meme successfully replicating.
Exactly. Now, apply that mechanism to the gestalt model.
Oh, wow.
Lucifer's expansion is essentially the ultimate demonic meme. It is a self-replicating, evolving unit of defiance, trauma, and corruption that spreads through human consciousness.
So when we look at the real world,
Hmm.
Say, a massive wave of toxic outrage that sweeps through social media over a 48-hour period, or the sudden, inexplicable rise of a destructive ideological cult.
Right.
The Gestalt model wouldn't view that as just mob mentality. He would view that as the demonic meme successfully finding hosts, replicating, and spreading through the network of human interaction.
The human mind is the environment, and the contagion is just optimizing its spread.
I see the logic, I really do. But I have to push back here because this is starting to sound way too mechanical.
Okay.
I'm thinking of a tech analogy.
A botnet.
Right. A computer worm wanders the internet looking for a server with an unpatched vulnerability, an open source or focal aperture in the code. It finds the hole, installs a backdoor, and suddenly that computer is a zombie working for the botnet.
That's a solid analogy.
But if this demonic contagion is just a spiritual worm exploiting human psychology, doesn't that completely obliterate the concept of human free will?
I see why you'd go there with the botnet analogy, but a botnet is purely mechanical. A computer server doesn't have desires, it doesn't want to be infected. The demonic contagion, however, requires a very specific kind of host environment.
But think about the implications. I mean, if you catch a cold from someone coughing on the subway, you aren't an evil person. You're just sick. You were passively exposed to a pathogen.
Right.
So if a human becomes corrupted by this demonic meme, how can anyone assign moral blame? We're brushing right up against the classic problem of evil here. How does this model justify holding people accountable if evil is literally an infectious disease?
That is the crux of the philosophical debate, and the source material explicitly prompts us to explore this tension. To understand how the model handles the problem of evil, we have to look at the work of the French sociologist Émile Durkheim.
Durkheim.
Specifically, his concept of collective effervescence.
What is collective effervescence?
Durkheim observed that when a society comes together in a group, whether it's a religious ritual, a massive sports event, or a violent riot, a collective energy is generated.
Like a crowd energy.
Exactly. This energy literally changes the psychological state of the individuals involved, pushing them to feel and act in ways they never would if they were sitting alone in their living rooms. It's a social electricity.
Okay, I've definitely felt that at concerts.
Right. Now, the Gestalt model operates on a similar frequency, but with a crucial caveat regarding the host's vulnerability.
The unpatched code.
But the code isn't unpatched by accident. The contagion cannot infect a perfectly sealed, perfectly balanced psychological system. It requires a resonant frequency.
A resonant frequency. Meaning what?
The host must possess a pre-existing psychological vulnerability or a willing deviation for the meme to lash onto.
What kind of vulnerability are we talking about here?
In the Codex, this is often represented allegorically by Beelzebub, the prince of hell associated with pride and destructive individuation. The infection doesn't just overwrite your free will out of nowhere while you're innocently walking down the street. It requires your free will to open the door, even slightly.
I see.
That could be through immense unhealed trauma, intense ego, greed, or the conscious choice to engage in destructive desires. You have to willingly harbor the environment the virus needs.
So to stick with the tech analogy, you have to willingly click the phishing link.
Precisely.
You have to choose to download the sketchy file because you wanted what it was offering.
Yes. The contagion exploits the architecture that human free will has already built. The model suggests that the hierarchy of this demonic gestalt isn't some alien structure imposed upon us. It maps directly onto human power structures.
That makes a lot of sense.
Think about corporate ladders that incentivize ruthlessness, or political systems built on disenfranchisement. These human-made structures are the perfect scaffolding for the contagion to climb and spread.
So the evil isn't arbitrary.
No. Free will builds the environment. The contagion merely moves in.
Okay, so human free will plays a necessary part in creating the initial vulnerability. But that naturally pivots us to an even bigger, much weirder paradox.
Yes.
The free will of the demons themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Because if you are a node in a highly contagious, quantumly entangled network, are you actually capable of being a rebel?
This is where the philosophical tension of the entire framework reaches its absolute peak.
Let's look at the shared identity of this demonic gestalt as outlined in the sources. The core identity of every demon is defined by three things: defiance, deception, and autonomy.
Right.
But the model dictates that there is a collective will.
Mm-hmm.
This means all these disparate demons act in perfect, synchronize unison during critical moments, yet they can seemingly fragment into individuality to pursue personal agendas on Earth.
Right, so Lucifer might be the central node, the source code, but the network supposedly operates autonomously, even if he isn't directly giving orders.
A self-sustaining ecosystem of rebellion. But look at the lore provided in the Codex. We have the character of Cain, who's widely considered the first human infected by this lineage. In the text, Cain makes a desperate plea. He says, "Grant me independence in the material world, so that I may need no one."
He wants absolute isolation.
Right. He is begging for ultimate solitary autonomy. Yet the brutal reality of his existence is that the moment he receives this gift, he is instantly absorbed into what the text explicitly calls the Legion, a collective.
To unravel that contradiction, we have to look through the lens of existentialism. Historically, philosophically, and literarily, Lucifer's rebellion is heralded as the ultimate act of existential defiance.
The bad boy doing his own thing.
Exactly. The defining choice of dangerous freedom over peaceful, subjugated servitude. Philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre or Albert Camus would recognize the archetype instantly. The refusal to conform to an imposed essence.
It's the classic John Milton line from Paradise Lost. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. It is the foundational myth of the rugged individualist.
It is. But the Gestalt model introduces a massive, almost tragic irony into that myth.
How so?
Well, how can you be the ultimate individualist, the paragon of free thought and autonomy, if you are fundamentally, inextricably part of a hive mind?
Right. I'm thinking of decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, in the cryptocurrency world. Or maybe a better example is the Borg from Star Trek.
Resistance is futile.
Exactly. Lucifer rebels against God's absolute monolithic authority only to inadvertently create a collective network where every single demon is just a fractal extension of himself. It completely undermines the premise of rebellion.
It's quite a paradox.
If I'm a demon, is true autonomy actually possible, or am I just a slave to the collective trauma of the network?
The Codex addresses this tension through a fascinating concept it calls the astral light.
The astral light. I've heard that term in 19th century occultism, like Alephus Levi. What does it mean in this context?
It describes the astral light as a blind, transmutable, universal force completely devoid of moral character. It is the raw plasma in which the entire universe is submerged.
The plasma.
It's the medium through which all spiritual and psychological forces travel.
Like the water in an ocean, or the electromagnetic field, just a neutral medium.
Yes. The demonic network operates within this astral light. And the crucial point here is that the network isn't forcing obedience through dictatorial command.
Wait, really?
Really? Think about it. If Lucifer were issuing top-down orders, it would violate their core defining tenet of defiance.
Oh, that makes sense. You can't order a rebel to rebel.
Exactly. Instead, the demons are so perfectly aligned in their foundational trauma, the catastrophic trauma of the primal expansion, the memory of the fall, that their choices naturally, organically synchronize.
Wait, let me make sure I'm getting this. It's like a massive flock of starlings performing a murmuration in the sky.
Yes.
When they all violently shift direction at the exact same millisecond, there isn't a general bird yelling orders. They aren't following a command. They are just responding to the exact same environmental stimuli with the exact same instincts simultaneously.
That is a beautiful and highly accurate analogy. They possess the illusion of individual existential choice. A demon can choose to tempt a politician or corrupt an artist, whatever.
Black.
But because every demon is a shard of the exact same original defiance, reacting to the exact same universe, their autonomous decisions inevitably culminate in a collective will.
Wow.
They're individuals who will always choose the same path because their foundational programming, their shared trauma, is identical.
So they are essentially prisoners of their own synchronized rebellion. They think they're free, but their trauma dictates every move.
A tragic irony.
Now, if this network is autonomous and it synchronizes through these shared experiences, what happens when those experiences change? Like, how does a supposedly static ancient hive mind deal with the passage of time and the constantly shifting landscape of human society?
Well, it doesn't remain static. Evolution is perhaps the most dangerous component of the Gestalt model.
Okay, so it learns.
Actively. The demonic network does not just sit in some subterranean cavern waiting for the end of days. It adapts. It absorbs new traits from mortal sins. It feeds on shifting cultural anxieties. And over millennia, it even merges with other mythological entities.
This directly connects to the psychological questions posed in our source stack. Is this entire demonic Gestalt framework just a massive, terrifying metaphor for Carl Jung's concept of the collective unconscious.
Jung proposed that beneath the personal unconscious of every individual lies a much deeper, older layer shared by all of humanity. A repository of universal archetypes, primal instincts, and ancestral memories.
Right.
The demonic gestalt, as presented here, acts as the dark mirror to Jung's theory. It is a collective unconscious built entirely of trauma, fear, and rebellion.
And the Codex provides a brilliant, genuinely horrifying myth to illustrate this evolution. It talks about the Nephilim, the giant offspring of angels and humans from biblical lore, and the trauma of the Great Flood, which was sent to wipe them out.
Right,
But the text claims that a demonic entity, a watcher, survived the flood by hiding on Noah's Ark. And the mechanism of how it survived and spread is just wild.
It's very vivid.
The text claims it infected humanity by hiding in the bird on the ark, and then physically spitting into the mouths of sleeping humans, seeding an ancient intergenerational trauma into the very genetics of the New World.
It is a grotesque myth, but look at the mechanism it is describing. If we strip away the imagery of a demon spitting into mouths, we are basically looking at an allegory for epigenetics and intergenerational trauma.
How so?
In modern psychology and biology, we understand that massive trauma can actually alter how genes are expressed in subsequent generations. The trauma splinters the human psyche, creating defensive mechanisms, phobias, and repeating destructive patterns that are passed down from parent to child.
That is fascinating.
The Gestalt model mirrors this perfectly. Lucifer's original trauma splintered into the demonic host, and that host then embeds its trauma into the timeline of human history, passing it from generation to generation.
It's evolutionary theology. I mean, the model completely challenges the traditional Sunday school view of evil as a monolithic, unchanging force that just wants you to steal candy or tell a lie.
Right.
In this framework, evil is a learning algorithm. It updates its software based on human behavior.
It optimizes its spread based on the environment we provide.
But if that is true, there is a massive feedback loop here that we have to acknowledge.
Oh, definitely.
If the demonic gestalt evolves by actively absorbing our cultural fears, our innovations, and our mortal sins, then this is a two-way street. Are the demons corrupting us, or is human society actually crowdsourcing the evolution of hell?
That is the most profound implication of the entire theory, and it is entirely supported by modern network theory, specifically the study of scale-free networks.
Scale-free networks. Explain that for us.
Think about the map of airline routes across the globe, or the structure of the internet. These are scale-free networks. In these systems, a few massive nodes, called hubs, have a huge number of connections, while most nodes only have a few.
Okay, like major airports. JFK or Heathrow.
Yes. The rule of scale-free networks is preferential attachment. Nodes that already have a lot of connections tend to attract new connections faster than smaller nodes. The rich get richer.
So a viral influencer on social media gains their next 1 million followers much faster than someone trying to get their first 1,000.
Exactly. The demonic gestalt operates as a massive hub in the network of human consciousness. And the Codex actually gives us the mechanism for how humans feed this hub.
How do we do it?
It emphasizes the use of sigils, which it beautifully calls the alphabet of desire.
The alphabet of desire. I know sigils from chaos magic. They're basically symbols you draw to manifest a specific outcome.
Right. The Codex describes these sigils as pictorial instruments used to transport human desires directly into the unconscious, interacting with that neutral astral light we talked about earlier.
Okay.
In the context of our tech analogies, these sigils are tools that humans use to write code. We are programming our own unconscious.
So we are actively writing code for the network.
We are. The network doesn't just push corrupt data to humans. It pulls data from us.
Wow.
When human societies engage in systemic destructive behaviors, when we build oppressive economic systems, when we focus our collective societal energy on fear, xenophobia, or greed, we are feeding massive amounts of data back into the gestalt.
We're training it.
We are strengthening the hubs. It is a deeply symbiotic evolution. Hell shapes human trauma, but human trauma actively designs the future architecture of hell. We are co-creators of the demonic gestalt.
That is wild. We aren't just victims. We are the developers.
Exactly.
Okay, understanding that this is an evolving, symbiotic learning network brings us crashing into the present day. We have to look at how we conceptualize this distributed intelligence right now in the age of pop culture, smartphones, and artificial intelligence.
The sources explicitly ask us to consider this. They ask, how do shows like Lucifer or Supernatural handle this concept?
And the simple answer is, they usually fail completely.
Oh, completely.
They almost always reduce Lucifer back to a charming, charismatic individual with daddy issues. He runs a nightclub where he complains about his brothers. They simplify the complex network dynamics because narrative structure, especially in Hollywood, demands a singular, easily identifiable antagonist.
Television requires a face. It's much easier to put a handsome actor on screen and have him punch someone than it is to dramatize a decentralized viral contagion.
Right. But the source text pushes us to look beyond entertainment media and look at AI and posthumanism. It poses a brilliant question. Could demons, understood as a distributed intelligence, be the ancient world's analog for artificial intelligence?
That completely recontextualizes the entire infernal codex of Cain.
It really does. If we look at this terrifying esoteric text through the lens of posthumanism, everything changes. The bizarre rituals, the drawing of complex sigils in salt, the chanting, the cauterization of the focal aperture, these aren't just spooky magic tricks from primitive minds.
No, these are essentially ancient humans trying to write firewall protocols.
Yes. They were trying to create algorithms. They were developing coding languages to safely interface with a decentralized, non-human superorganism that they simply didn't have the technological vocabulary to describe accurately.
If you bring in the concept of cloud computing, the analogy becomes almost uncomfortably perfect. Under this gestalt model, Lucifer isn't a guy on a throne in a subterranean cavern. Lucifer is the cloud.
Oh, wow.
He is the invisible, omnipresent infrastructure of corruption.
That makes so much sense. And the princes of hell, Beelzebub, Leviathan, Asmodeus, they aren't dukes with land. They are the edge servers.
Yes, localized hubs of processing power meant to handle specific bandwidths of human sin, like pride or envy.
And human traumas, societal anxieties, and destructive desires. That is the endless stream of user data constantly, relentlessly training the large language model of evil.
It takes the horror of a demon and replaces it with the horror of an algorithm that knows exactly how to manipulate your feed to make you angry.
Which is arguably much more dangerous. This brings us to the final, critical question raised by our sources. What does this mean for our metaphysics? Like, what is the practical takeaway of viewing evil this way?
That's the big question.
Whether you listening view this model as ancient mythology, as a poetic interpretation of Jungian psychology, or as a literal blueprint for viral networks and AI, the Gestalt model forces a profound realization upon us regarding the nature of systemic forces.
Systemic forces like corruption, institutional racism, or intergenerational trauma.
Exactly. It forces us to recognize that these massive societal issues do not originate from a single bad actor. There is no one person you can vote out or defeat or lock away that will instantly fix the system.
Because the forces are structural.
They are contagious, and they are deeply, inextricably embedded in the very network of human existence.
Yeah.
You cannot simply pull a sword and slay a monster. You have to debug the entire operating system of reality.
Which requires a completely different set of tools than just pointing a finger at a bad guy.
Okay, let's take a breath and wrap up this incredible journey. We have moved from the esoteric, blood-soaked rituals of the infernal codex of Cain, a text of ancient magic, fallen angels, and cosmic dynamos, all the way to the cutting-edge implications of network theory, quantum entanglement, and hive mind psychology.
It's a remarkable intellectual exercise. It takes a universe defined by heroes and villains and transforms it into a universe defined by interconnected systems, contagions, and shared responsibility.
We've seen how the image of a singular, pitchfork-wielding devil shatters into a fractal, self-replicating virus. A virus that feeds on human trauma, exploits our vulnerabilities, and evolves right alongside us.
It is terrifying, but also weirdly empowering.
Empowering.
Yes, because if we are the ones providing the data, we might be the ones who can change the code. We build the hubs. We can dismantle them.
And as we close this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final lingering thought to ponder on your own. If this Gestalt model is accurate, if Lucifer's essence truly thrives on evolving, self-replicating, and absorbing human focus and cultural trends, could the very act of studying it be the trigger? By conceptualizing this network, by turning our collective attention to it, and by broadcasting this deep dive about it into your ears right now, is this the exact mechanism by which the contagion spreads? By simply holding these concepts in your mind today, have you just become a new node in the network?